Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications. And now, let's join ace broadcaster MAMODE AKUGHA as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, MAMODE AKUGHA.
Inside the Niger Delta. Nddc at 25, a journey of holistic and sustainable development across communities in Nigeria's oil-rich region. The path has been uneasy, but the mission remains unchanged, transforming communities, impacting lives and building hope. Here is a new era of making a difference by forging partnerships for a peaceful and prosperous Niger Delta under the Renewed Hope initiative of President Bola Tinubu.
Community development is a matter very close to my heart. Oboku, the MD of Nddc, is doing a good job, encouraging to achieve more.
Nddc, 25 years of making a difference.
After several years of agitations against the neglect, deprivation, and systemic marginalization of the Niger Delta, President Olusegun Obasanjo in July 2000 established the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) to offer a solution to the socio-economic difficulties in the Niger Delta region. The NDDC was charged with the sole responsibility of facilitating the rapid, even, and sustainable development of the Niger Delta into a region that is economically prosperous, socially stable, ecologically regenerative, and politically peaceful. Between that time and now, it's been 25 years. And in July this year, Nigeria's foremost intervention agency, the NDDC, will roll out its drums to celebrate its silver jubilee. It has been 25 years of challenges, successes, and indeed very many trials. But in all of this, the people of the Niger Delta cannot deny that the NDDC has at least brought some hope and respite to an otherwise marginalized region. To commemorate 25 years of the NDDC, we are putting together a 4-part documentary that tells the story of the NDDC from year 1 to year 25. Today, we are bringing to you part 1 of the NDDC at 25. Why and how the NDDC was set up.
Development, transformation,
The Nigerian nation formally came into existence in 1914 when Lord Frederick Lugard orchestrated the amalgamation of northern and southern protectorates of Nigeria into a united one Nigeria under British colonial rule. Before this time, the Niger Delta communities, which largely inhabited the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean, lived and operated as autonomous ethnic nationalities or city-states with no overreaching central authority. They were not minorities but sovereign and independent entities which were deeply involved in transatlantic trade, dealing in palm oil, fish, slaves and other goods. At that time, these groups of independent but interconnected communities were referred to as the Oil Rivers Protectorate, later the Niger Coast Protectorate by the British Colonial Authority. The name Oil Rivers Protectorate had its roots from palm oil. That was the chief product from the area. The amalgamation of northern and southern protectorates brought these previously independent ethnic groups and over 200 others under British colonial authority in one Nigeria.
We can live together, break together, eat together.
This became the foundation for the classification of majority and minority ethnic groups and enduring minority issues as the Niger Delta region and its multiple ethnic nationalities, whose numbers could not match those of the larger Hausa Fulani of the north, Yoruba of the west, and Igbo of the east, found themselves politically and economically dominated. The 1946 Richards Constitution unfortunately consolidated this domination by establishing regional governments in which these minority groups were lumped into these large regions and placed under the political control of dominant ethnic nationalities. For example, some Ijos, Urobo, Ishekiri, Edo, and other ethnic groups in the Niger Delta were subsumed under the Yoruba-dominated western region. The Tiv, Idoma, and other ethnic groups were under Hausa Fulani control in the north, and the Efik, Ibibio, and Anang were under Igbo influence in the east. Although the constitution allowed for Nigerians to elect representatives to the Legislative Council for the very first time, representation was based on regional structures controlled by the majority ethnic blocs, leading to underrepresentation of the minorities in decision-making at the national level. This marginalization and political exclusion led to demands for political autonomy and ethnic preservation, especially by the minority people of the Niger Delta, whose region, despite its rich resources, remained largely underdeveloped. During the 1957 Lancaster House Constitutional Conference held in London, convened to discuss Nigeria's road to self-government, nationalist and founding member of the Niger Delta Congress, NDC, Harold Dapabriye, and his colleagues from the region demanded autonomy or a separate region for the Niger Delta, or at least some constitutional safeguards to protect minority interests. Dapabriye and his compatriots argued that ethnic minorities in the Niger Delta were neglected, lacked infrastructure, and would be politically dominated after independence. This directly led to the setting up of the Sir Henry Willings Commission in 1957 to investigate the fears of minorities before independence. The commission went on to tour various parts of the country, especially minority-dominated areas, including the Niger Delta, inhabited by Ijo, Ishekiri and Urobo areas, and Cross River and Akwa Ibom areas housing the Efik, Ibibio, Anang and other ethnic groups in the region. The outcome of the Willings Commission justified the concerns and agitations of the people as it described the Niger Delta as infrastructurally and generally poor, backward, neglected and in dire need of special attention. The report then advised the government to establish a federal board to address the problems of the area, which is made up of riverine communities and very challenging terrain due to the swampy forest and waterlogged areas which had made life increasingly and unbearably hard for the people. In 1960, a special development board known as the Niger Delta Development Board, NDDB, was created to address the infrastructure deficit in the region and attend to the needs of the people, as well as ensure socio-economic gains for its peoples. However, the commission could not make significant progress until the Nigerian Civil War broke out from 1967 to 1970. The tenure of the board was supposed to be renewed in 1969, but the ongoing civil conflict and other national issues made it impossible, effectively stalling its operations. Other factors like poor funding, lack of local participation, as well as government bureaucracies and lack of coordination, amongst other issues, limited its effectiveness and efficiency in addressing the overwhelming development deficits in the region. A similar, if not worse fate befell the Niger Delta Basin Development Authority, NDBDA, that was established in 1976 after the Civil War to champion agricultural and rural development in the oil-rich Niger Delta region. While the trial and error development efforts continued, the people of the Niger Delta remained in their state of poverty, neglect and systemic marginalization. Meanwhile, the Nigerian government and international oil companies were making millions of petrodollars from the region's crude oil exploration and exploitation, while the host communities of the Black Gold remained in poor, run-down conditions, with most people living without access to basic social services or life-supporting infrastructure.
We need love and unity.
To make matters worse, companies like Shell, Chevron and Agip operated with little accountability, as recurring oil spills and routine gas flaring drove the loss of biodiversity that devastated the livelihoods of the people, which were predominantly fishing and farming. To stem this gross injustice against the Niger Delta, the tempo of agitations increased across the region. By 1990, the Ogonis of River State, led by Ken Saro-Wiwa, met and came out with the Ogoni Bill of Rights, which among other things demanded for local autonomy, Ogoni right to control of Ogoni resources, the oil, and compensation for exploitation of crude oil and oil pollution, which they perceived was a threat to their continued survival. They established an organization to push their non-violent agitation, known as the Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People, MOSOP.
Indigenous people have been cheated through laws such as are operated in Nigeria today, through political marginalization. They have driven certain people to death. We are going to demand our rights peacefully, non-violently, and we shall win.
To quell rising tensions, self-styled military president General Ibrahim Babangida, on the 9th of July 1992, signed the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission (OMPADEC) decree into law to address the Niger Delta question. The Babangida administration intended OMPADEC to be an interventionist and development agency. It was to operate with 3% of oil and gas revenues from developmental projects in the oil-producing areas, address ecological problems and promote infrastructure, education and social services in impacted communities. Just like previous efforts, these too could not address the concerns of the people who continued with their campaign for a better deal from the Nigerian states. To discourage further agitation in the Niger Delta struggle, the federal military government launched a campaign of repression of vocal voices for a better Niger Delta. The Ogoni 9, including Ken Saro-Wiwa, were accused of murdering 4 pro-government chiefs in Ogoni. They were tried, and despite pleas from all over the world, they were hanged in Port Harcourt on the 10th of November 1995. Thereafter, some Ogoni villages were raided by military personnel and several people were killed. By 1998, Ijaw youths from 6 states met in Kayama, birthplace of Ijaw Mata, Isaac Adaka Boro, to discuss the emancipation of Ijaw people and other ethnic groups in the Niger Delta. Their meeting led to the establishment of the Ijaw Youth Council and the issuance of the famous Kayama Declaration on the 11th of December 1998, in which they claimed ownership of all oil mineral resources in their land and ceased to recognize decrees like the Land Use Decree and the Petroleum Decree, which they believed robbed them of their God-given gifts. The Nigerian military government used its military might to shut down agitations from Ijaw youths, and posted military personnel to oil installations as well as around the entire region, just the same way the federal government quelled the 12-day revolution of Isaac Adaka Boro. The same reasons of exploitation of oil resources in the Niger Delta, the neglect of local communities, and the domination by the majority ethnic groups led the then university student activist Isaac Adaka Boro to lead the first secession struggle against Nigeria with his declaration of the Republic of Niger Delta on February 23, 1966. Though it was short-lived, the sense of ongoing economic exploitation in the Niger Delta, coupled with the resource curse that had left oil-rich communities in poverty, had deeply frustrated the youth. After the Nigerian government successfully shut down agitations from IYC, many of the youths became disillusioned by the lack of progress in the struggle. Having seen how unsuccessful civil agitation was, judging from the repression of Ogoni people and the IYC agitators, many of the youths began turning to armed struggle to demand environmental justice and economic liberation. Their violent agitation soon targeted oil installations which were disabled and expatriate workers kidnapped. This situation became a serious challenge for the Nigerian state, which depended heavily on crude oil, which accounted for about 90% of its foreign exchange. Preparatory to the transition from military to civil rule in 1999, the derivation to the 9 oil-producing states was reviewed to 13%. Specifically, Section 162 subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria states that not less than 13% of the revenue accruing to the Federation account directly from any natural resources shall be paid to the state where the resource is derived. While this was not as it was in the pre-independence era and in the First Republic, where regions received 50% derivation, it signaled some hope for the region. On the other hand, former military head of state Olusegun Obasanjo, who was running for the office of President of Nigeria and campaigning across the region, came face to face with the neglect and sheer deprivation in the region, as well as his prior knowledge of the minority issues, promised to ensure that the region is duly catered for when he becomes president. Chief Onyema Ugochukwu was Chief Obasanjo's communication assistant and later pioneer chairman of the governing board of the NDDC.
Beyond what he saw, this neglect of the area that he saw, there was also agitation by the youths of the Niger Delta at the time. The youths were in revolt right across the Niger Delta. But I would say that the Obasanjo's main idea came from what he saw as the lack of development in the area. When he was sworn in, he already had prepared the Nddc Act.
Just months after being sworn in as Nigeria's second democratically elected president, and in keeping with his earlier promise, President Olusegun Obasanjo wasted no time in addressing the long neglect of the Niger Delta. He quickly set the wheels in motion for the creation of the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC), aimed at bringing development to the troubled and marginalized communities of the region. In fact, the bill to establish the NDDC was the second piece of legislation he sent to the National Assembly right after the one for setting up the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission (ICPC). The commission was to be funded by contributions from the federal government, oil companies operating in the region, and ecological funds, as well as other internally generated income sources. However, this bill was not without contention between the president who initiated it and the National Assembly, which took the liberty to tinker with the bill to better suit what they said was the greater good of the oil-rich Niger Delta region. In the draft bill President Obasanjo sent to the National Assembly, he proposed that the federal government contribute only 10% from the monthly statutory allocation to the oil-producing states to the NDDC, while the National Assembly increased it to 15%, insisting that the federal government must commit more due to the extent of neglect and environmental degradation in the Niger Delta. President Obasanjo also proposed 2% of oil company annual budget to be paid to the NDDC, but the National Assembly increased it to 3%. He also sought to make the NDDC largely accountable to the presidency, with the president having sweeping powers over appointments and board decisions, while the lawmakers amended it to provide for stronger oversight by the National Assembly, mandatory submission of annual reports and budgets to the legislature, and tenure security for board members to reduce presidential interference. Also, Obasanjo's draft included only a few core oil-producing states, but the National Assembly amended the bill to include all 9 oil-producing states. These and other issues the president was not at home with made him withhold his assent to the bill after the National Assembly passed it. Unwilling to bend to the whims and caprices of the president, the National Assembly, led by Senate President Dr. Chuba Okadibo and House of Reps Speaker Gali Umar Naba, in August 2000, exercised its constitutional power to override the president's veto under Section 58, Subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution. The bill was passed by 2/3 majority of both houses, and the bill was enacted into law without presidential assent, marking one of the earliest and most high-profile veto overrides in Nigeria's Fourth Republic, which demonstrated the strength of the legislature on a matter seen as crucial to national unity. And so, by an act of parliament, the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, was born. The president refused to implement the law until several months later, when he went ahead to constitute the first governing board, led by Chief Onyema Ugochukwu from Abia State, in accordance with Section 4, Subsection 1, Paragraph B of the NDDC Act, which states that the office of the chairman shall rotate amongst the member states of the commission in the following alphabetical order: Abia, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and Rivers. Retired former Deputy Managing Director of Shell Nigeria, Engineer Godwin Omene from Delta State, was then appointed its pioneer Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. However, the nomination of Ugochukwu didn't initially scale through Senate screening, but the president kept rescinding it until it was accepted, and he went on to inaugurate the board in December 2000.
For some reason, the National Assembly refused to confirm me. I confirmed everybody, but not me, because my governor was opposed to my appointment. And so the president put back my name, and it took quite a lot of argument and struggle before the Senate confirmed me, and then the president inaugurated, I think, about either the 18th or 19th of December 2000, inaugurated the board and asked us to go to work.
In setting up the NDDC, President Obasanjo's vision was to use the interventionist agency to facilitate the rapid, even and sustainable development of the Niger Delta into a region that is economically prosperous, socially stable, ecologically regenerative, and politically peaceful. By this, the Commission was empowered to execute projects and implement programs that will promote integration and provide a focused and sustainable framework for providing lasting solutions to the socio-economic difficulties in the Niger Delta region. After 25 years and in spite of the many challenges, trials and successes of the NDDC, many Niger Deltans would readily agree that the NDDC has not only bridged the infrastructure gap in the region, but has also brought renewed hope to the people, hitherto neglected, deprived and marginalized.
They have met our vision, projection. Those of us still living as the founding fathers, NDDC has a bright future. What we need more is we need more funds for NDDC.
We're grateful and happy that despite its wrongs and its rights, its failures and its successes, that the NDDC is still there.
NDDC, 25 years of making a difference in the Niger Delta.
Inside the Niger Delta.
For 2.5 decades, the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has been at the forefront of peace building and development across Nigeria's oil-rich region. As the foremost interventionist agency in Nigeria celebrates these 25 years of making a difference, Inside the Niger Delta with MAMODE AKUGHA is proud to bring you a special video contest tagged The NDDC Story in My Community for residents or indigents of any of the 9 NDDC mandate states. All you need to do is to first follow us on our YouTube page at NDN-TV Nigeria. Then shoot a 1 to 3 minute video of an NDDC project in your community, whether it is completed, ongoing or stalled. Your video must clearly show the project and its location, including your community, local government area and state. A visible project signpost if available. And of course, you sharing the impacts of the projects in question. Let the world see the NDDC through your eyes. Show us the change or the challenges. At the end of the contest, the best story wins a grand prize of 1 million naira. Second place takes home 750,000 naira and third place will walk away with 500,000 naira. And that's not all. Selected videos will be featured on Inside the Niger Delta across TV and digital platforms, giving your community the spotlight it deserves. Submissions open from May 6 to July 6, 2025. To enter, simply visit our website at www.ndntv.com.ng. Click on #MyNDDCStory and follow the instructions. Now it's time for you, the people of the Niger Delta, to tell the NDDC story in your community from your unique experience. NDDC, 25 years of making a difference.
Well, as the NDDC celebrates its silver jubilee, 25 years of existence, we say congratulations to the board and management of the NDDC and indeed to all Niger Deltans. Well, that's where we draw the curtain on the program for today. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region will be back same time, same station next week. Until then, you can follow us on our social media handles shown right now on your screens. And please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN-TV Nigeria. Until next week, I am MAMODE AKUGHA thanking you for staying tuned. Bye for now.